there.
Hey.
How are you today?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm good. You must be excited.
I'm very excited. Very excited.
The premiere is very imminent.
Yes, it's almost here. It's almost here.
When you're going into a big franchise like this, because it feels already to me like this looks like a big franchise, what do you expect? Do you have any expectations coming into it?
All I have are hopes that it hits audiences the way that we wanted it to translate. I mean, these are beloved books for a reason, and we wanted to do our best to honor the books and to portray it visually in a way that allows these characters to be compelling and interesting and relatable within this larger world that we've created. And hopefully, all the different tones and storylines and whatnot hit the audience the same way it hit us when we read it. So,
right.
Yeah, hoping, not expecting, but hoping.
So when we start out, Jim is kind of, I guess you could say he's a bit of a slacker, maybe, or
you could definitely say he's a slacker. He's a slacker. He's cynical. He's a little self-involved. He doesn't really want any real responsibility. He's run from authority his whole life.
Right.
Just doesn't want to answer to anybody, and he comes across this distress call, and through this very small act of altruism, he gets dragged into this far larger socio-political maelstrom of tension,
right.
And becomes a figurehead and this kind of inadvertent revolutionary for that tension, which of course pushes him to grow. He becomes a very different guy over the course of the season and over the course of the first book.
Right.
And for me as an actor, he's a wonderful person to portray because there's so many different colors. Especially for a guy when you meet him who's so guarded. I mean,
right.
he's guarded with his slackerness and guarded with his cynicism. But you really don't get to know James until, it hits the fan.
Right.
And then you start to see who he is because all of the front burns away. And he's got to start stepping up to the plate in a way that he hasn't his whole life.
When you're playing someone like this, do you kind of revel in the opportunity to devolve at the beginning to then evolve as you go along? It must be a fun portrayal.
It is. It's very fun. It's fun to have. It's always fun to have somewhere to go with your characters, but particularly with him. I mean, the trajectory is so intense and so steep.
Right.
It's a real challenge, and it's also the greatest joy of portraying him. I mean, it's both.
Right.
So for me, I relish it. I relish the opportunity to kind of have this guy just pulled completely out of his comfort zone,
right.
and turn him into something else.
And for those of us who haven't read the book, is it safe to say you could portray him as someone who's going to become a hero? Is that kind of what makes sense for him?
I think you could say he's definitely a hero to some.
Right.
Not all,
okay.
But some. I mean, I think what I love about these characters is that there's no black and white.
Right.
Within any of these people. It's
right.
all varying shades of gray. And, for Jim, I think after the events that transpire, he feels a tremendous amount of guilt for the loss that he feels was his responsibility. And when he first is in a situation where he actually has these real responsibilities, he has very clear ideas of what's wrong and right, and everything's kind of black and white. And then he finds the deeper he goes into this kind of swamp of different figureheads, militaries and conspiracies and things, and he has to start acting on his instincts and impulses and morals, that the actions in and of themselves turn him more gray.
Right.
Maybe without him even knowing it.
And he's even quite gray to begin with,
yeah.
when one moment he's saying, move on, and the next he's basically turning things around.
Yes. It all flips very fast for him. And then the trajectory just ramps up from there. It doesn't stop. I think anybody watching the show or anyone who's seen the first episode, the pace doesn't change.
Right.
It's similar in the books. It just kind of grabs you by the throat and just doesn't let go. It's a fast train. for sure.
And yet it's cleverly smart, and yet not too smart, I guess you could say, because there's certainly sci-fi shows that maybe take it too far.
Sure.
You guys seem to have this very clever balance of just enough smarts for maybe confusing people, I guess.
Yeah, we have the luxury of this incredible source material.
Right.
And, that's really the key to telling the story, because at the end of the day, as much as it falls into the science fiction genre, it really is a drama. Just
Right.
It happens to take place in a couple hundred years.
Right.
We don't focus too hard on the technology because we don't actually do that in real life. Like, I don't pull out my iPhone and look at it and wonder if I've been using it for years. This show is about the people, and regardless of how beautiful the effects are, they are gorgeous and spectacular. If the audience doesn't connect to the stories of who these people are and relate to them in some way, it's all for naught.
Right.
So we have the intelligence in the writers' room. We have the intelligence in the directing and in the novels and within the intricacies of the performances and whatnot. But we didn't want to stray away from the fact that this really is a story about people.
Right. And then in terms of the drama itself, it really is political in the sense that it's hard to watch it and not think of what's going on right now.
Yeah, it's a heavily political show, and I think
which is a great testament to the writing and the
Yes.
smarts of the show itself.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's an incredible gift. I mean, I think if you look back through the whole science fiction genre just as a whole, whether it's Philip K. Dick or it's subsequent authors or whatever, you see that it's a perfect genre for framing political questions and situations in a way that's digestible
Right.
to large audiences. And it's very clear, if you've seen a little bit of the show or read the books, that you can apply the dynamics of this narrative to today. You can
Right.
apply it to colonial Britain. You could apply it to the Cold War. You could apply it to all kinds of stuff, and it still falls true.
Right.
And for us as artists, it's not up to us to judge who's right and who's wrong. It's just up to us to portray it accurately and as realistically as possible. And then it's up to them, the audience, to figure out who they agree with or disagree with.
Cool. And then, was it fun to film? Because it certainly looks like some of the scenes were... It gets pretty epic. I mean, it's a good action show at the same time.
Yes, yeah. It was very fun to film. And I think, as challenging as some of those sequences and stuff are, and as, hot as those spacesuits are, the whole time when we were shooting, I think we were all aware that that we were building something that had a very special energy to it.
Right.
And every time we got a good shot off or a good sequence done, it was gratifying and exhausting, but totally gratifying in the best way.
Nice. Well then, otherwise, the cast. Obviously, you work closely with a few key people.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about working with these guys? Because it's a very cool group.
Yeah, it's a great group. All of us really clicked from the beginning, and everybody had, very specific intentions and choices for their characters, and again, everybody committed 110%. So
Right.
we all came to play, and the energy and dynamic between the five of us at the end of the first episode, we wanted to make sure that there was some kind of energy and familiarity that feels like you've come in the middle of their story.
Right.
They've known each other for a long time. Maybe not too well, they're colleagues, they're not best friends,
Right.
but they're familiar with each other. And, we've got this crazy, amazing group of actors across the board. I mean, from Thomas Jane to Sheree Agoshalu to Chad Coleman to Jared Harris to Jonathan Banks. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. And I think I could speak for everybody when I say that we were all drawn to the writing. I mean, the writing is just absolutely spectacular. It's great, great writing.
Nice.
Gives you every color you need to play with.
The last thing I'd like to know really is
Sure.
what can you tease us? What can you tell us that that is coming down the line that's going to be epic?
I think I'm not going to say which storylines cross over, but they do.
Great.
Yeah.
That's
what I'll say.
You certainly can see it coming, but in what direction, I guess.
Yeah,
It's hard to say.
and then whose.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, and actually, have you read the books?
I have, yeah.
Does it differ? Where does it differ for you?
It only differs because we really did want to stay true to the books.
Of course.
I mean, to the point where, the authors, James S.A. Corey, which is really two people, it's Ty Frank and Daniel Abraham.
Right.
They are in our writer's room. They write episodes. One of them is on set almost every day. So, we definitely wanted to make sure that we honored these books that people love so much. And the only difference, there's no change in narrative, but we pulled Avasarala's story forward because she appears in the second book.
Oh, okay.
So we moved it forward just, at the end of the day, it is a different medium. It's a visual medium.
Right.
And the writers felt that it brought a stronger story to television.
Right.
But other than that, it's the same.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.